Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I'm proud to bring you on Age of Heroes Quest for Optimal Wellness, the Diana Montfort Show, and I am the guest today. Greetings, Diana. How are you?
How are you? Anyway, hi. I'm Diana Montford. Yes, the world's first transgender television journalist. It's on the internet. Look it up. And we're going to talk about ufology, also known as whatever it's called now, UFA something or I don't know.
UAP, I think.
But what?
I think it's UAP.
UAP, yes, unidentified airborne something.
Phenomena.
Well, anyway, those things that fly around in the sky and scare us all to death. We're going to talk about those things, and they shouldn't scare us to death because if they wanted to do something to us, they would have done it thousands of years ago. So it's not to serve man like the Twilight Zone episode, as far as I know. Anyway, so we are now going to talk about, well, UFOs. Hello.
Hello. I'm looking forward to talking about UFOs with you. It's been a while since we've had this conversation, and tomorrow you're going to be on our tribute to Eric von Daniken show.
Yes,
I'm really looking.
wonderful. I don't want to start on him now, but just as an aside, he wrote that book when he was like in his late 20s or very early 30s. That's amazing.
Yes, it is, and he changed the world or the world's perception of antiquity, and that's quite a feat.
Yes, indeed. And the Sumerians and, people went from living in caves to suddenly being the Sumerians. How did that happen?
Hmm. In Greek mythology, when I was growing up, and of course, I started learning about mythology from an early age, and I went to a Greek school, so I learned more about mythology. We knew that the gods had robots. Hephaestus, who's the forge of the gods, he's the craftsman, he's the weapon, armor, and jewelry maker among the gods. He had female robots who were golden hued, helping him in his forge. And also, Crete had a device called a talos, who looked like a giant warrior that used to walk around the island and burn ships with his eyes if they were threatening to Crete. So we had that. And so I was always receptive to his theories. And I think I have every book he's ever written, and I've read it pretty much when it came out.
Well, here's an interesting thing. Costume history is a hobby of mine.
Hmm.
And costume historians always mention how strange it is that the snake charmer, the famous statue of that woman with the two
Yeah,
snakes, that she's basically wearing 1890s clothes. And how is this possible? They find that very strange because the cut of her skirt and everything else is very much of the very late, early 20th century, and that's strange.
yeah. There's a lot of strange things. Like now they're focusing a lot on handbags that are being depicted and suitcases, pretty much like the modern ones we have. And there are also depictions of women using what was thought to be like a mirror, like a cosmetics mirror, but now it looks
Yeah.
like a laptop, especially since it has a USB port in the same place where laptops have them. So I'm sure as we
Well, you know what?
will be looking at the past through new eyes. Like before there were airplanes, a lot of the South American artifacts were labeled as bees or birds, but they look suspiciously like aircraft. Now that we have air,
Including children's toys, yeah,
yeah.
that are basically little model planes, yeah.
So I'm very,
That is very strange.
and the UFOs, that has not only been a part of our world since the 40s when Kenneth Arnold talked about them, and there was nuclear threat imminent in the horizon. They've been part of our entire history, and they've been depicted in art, and they've survived the story. So that it's a
Well,
really
in ancient Egypt, they're depicted literal space persons wearing what amounts to space suits and depictions of rockets, and they're on the walls of the pyramids.
yep. Most certainly so.
So there you go.
And there's a pyramid in Greece also that few people know about, but it's been there forever. And a lot of UFOs appear on the iconography. And again, they weren't called UFOs, but that's what they are in our eyes, and that's what they've remained since they were identified as such.
Well, I have a truly strange story in my family. Here goes. My
Uh,
grandmother was born in Spain in 1890. In 1906, when she was about to turn 16, her father died of pneumonia. He was 42. So her mother took my grandmother back to the mother's village to sort of recover, over the summer. So anyway, so my grandmother's sitting on the porch. It's nighttime. There was no there was no electricity. There was nothing. It was, like 1906. She looks up at the sky and she sees round green lights. Now, today that wouldn't be all that strange because, we have all sorts of things floating in the air and we have electricity and everything, but this really spooked my grandmother. So she went to her mother and she said, "You won't believe what I just saw. I saw round green lights," and her mother poo-pooed it and said, "Oh, yes, the ovnis, yes. They've been here since the dawn of time." These people took for granted that there were like space creatures, and they had no problem with it. And she said, "Yes, they help with the crops. It's fine. Don't worry about it." So the next day, my grandmother went to the village priest, and she said, "Father, I have to talk to you. Last night I saw something that I can't believe I saw this. Round green lights in the sky." And he answered, "Oh, you mean the ovnis? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, we've been seeing those for hundreds of years. Don't worry about it. It's fine. They don't hurt anyone." This boggled her mind. And forevermore, she talked about how shocked she was. So there you go.
And that's pretty much the explanation that's given now with all the disclosures that have been happening. Oh yeah, they've been
Hmm.
for a long time. We have them on. We've recorded them. We observed them. They haven't done anything. So even though we don't know what they are, who's sending them, just ignore them. Nothing to see here.
Well, and here's an even funnier thing. There's a huge strain of longevity in that village called San Miguel de Cerrezuela. It's in Avila, like where St. Teresa was from.
Mhm.
And like my grandmother's ancestors, like they would live to be like 103 before medical science, before anything. That is really weird. And everybody in the town lives a very long time. Now, you could say that that's inbreeding because people in those days were very suspicious of people in the next village. So they all sort of married one another over and over and over again. And there was a longevity strain that just kept enhancing. Or it could be that someone somewhere was seeded with, you know, alien germs, alien sperm, alien something, and passed it along to the population. And that's why they live such a long time.
Those are both intriguing possibilities. And has anyone explored the longevity of the people of your ancestral village? Because they did an experiment
Uh,
in Greece, which is where Icarus is supposed to have fallen near. Daedalus and Icarus, where they flew out of the labyrinth in Crete.
sure, he flew too close to the sun, yeah,
Right,
with
Icaria
his wax wings. Yeah.
landed near. People there have an unnaturally long life span too. So they've been studied a great deal, and their diet's been duplicated, and their advice of not being too stressed about things has been imitated. So I was wondering if anybody checked into that in your village.
Not that I know of, but I know what they eat. They eat ordinary Spanish food, a lot of chickpeas, um, chicken, pork, just what Spaniards eat. Ordinary food, ordinary Spanish food, what they can grow and what they can kill, and rabbits. They like rabbit stew. They're nothing special.
Pretty much
That's really strange.
the carrier too. They eat what people in the Mediterranean eat.
Yeah, exactly. Well, a lot of olive oil, I guess. So yeah, but yeah, no, nothing. It's very strange. It really is.
Now in
But
the gods um, found the daughters of men fair and slept with them, produced hybrid children, and that theory is still alive and around today. They're called star seeds, however, these days. Do you
mhm.
thoughts on the star seeds?
Yeah.
I'd love
Well,
to.
the Anunnaki invented us, didn't they? They mated with the Earth people and created us, all of us.
Yes, and the Olympians did much the same thing with the Greeks and the Romans and other nearby peoples.
But are they Olympians or are they space gods? And people in those days just put it down to something they could understand. You
Well,
know, they wouldn't have understood space people, so they just said, well, they're from Mount Olympus, that big mountain up there.
there were celestials of some type. They had something to do with space, and they're closely associated with the stars because astrology and the planets they're all filled with Greek mythical imagery and names. So they've been connected, and you have some Hellenismos type folks like Gregory Plethon during late antiquity who wrote about the gods, and they weren't really seen as something totally physical. They were seen as different orders of beings, like we have angels.
Hmm.
The gods are sometimes seen as a level of angel or a level of a fallen angel, depending on which sect was looking at them. And again, that had that association with the void and the starry heavens. But the concept of somebody coming from there is pretty late. There was a book written in Rome around the first or second century that had gods coming from different planets and planes. It was called The True Story, even though it clearly wasn't. It was very tongue in cheek. But I have several versions of that, and it's interesting. In the Roman Empire, they had the concept of science fiction and published books about it.
Well, and space aliens would know enough to present themselves in human form, but really beautiful human form, so that people wouldn't be afraid of them and would be attracted to them and like them, wouldn't they?
I would imagine so. And in the tales are shapeshifters. They could appear in any guise they want to. They could be a
Hmm.
natural phenomenon like rain in the case of Perseus's mother. They could be bulls or peacocks or swans or any one of a different number of animal shapes. And then they could appear as people, either as strangers, because in Greek mythology and even in Greece today with the hospitality laws, they question what the level of the person who's a stranger is. And it could be a god, you never know, so you better treat them well. And in antiquity, that was
Donald Trump, are you listening? That would be good.
yes, it would be good, and it was doubly so in antiquity because, according to the story, they often were the gods in disguise, so they could look like a stranger, or as is shared in the Odyssey and in other places, they could appear as someone you know. So the word mentor comes from a character in the Odyssey who was mentor to Telemachus, Odysseus' son, and in actuality, it was Athena talking to him when mentor talked. So
That's amazing.
yeah, so I don't know if they're strictly aliens from space or intelligences that aren't really biological 100% according to our understanding, because the concept of superheroes that we have today uh, fits in very nicely with how the Greeks viewed their gods.
Well, I mean, they could be people from the future who know enough to present themselves in our primitive human form and, are here to help. You never know.
No, you never know. Do you have a favorite theory?
What did what theory?
Do you have a favorite theory?
They could be people or entities from another dimension. They could be from the 12th dimension coming to help us. But I don't have a pet theory, no, but there are so many possibilities. It's difficult to narrow it down to one specific theory. I think I do think the Greys, though, are sort of robots, like the golden women who help in the forge. I think, they're not entirely or not at all human as we would understand it. They're sort of robotic little beings. And I think that those gorgeous, tall, blonde ones are probably, I mean, just how much do we know about Robert Redford? Although he was short. But I mean, you never know, you know? I mean, who knows? And you pass someone on the street, they might be a space alien, and how would we know?
That's the thing. How would we know? Um, yeah, I believe that whatever is going on, it's given birth to a very rich and complex mythology. Some of the mythology comes from pop culture, like, for instance, the reptilians.
Yeah,
Now,
but, well, you know, Princess Diana swore that Queen Elizabeth and King Charles and all those people were actual reptilians. She
I
told several people, including her best friend.
the reptilians, they became popularly known through the television show V. Before V, there weren't that many stories about real reptilians. They started popping up as things that people experienced around that time. And earlier than that, Robert E. Howard and H.P. Lovecraft, in their strange fiction, wrote about shape-shifting snake people who could appear as.
Well, here's the funny thing. Queen Victoria always wore a snake-shaped ring on her finger. Why would she do that?
I don't know.
When the snake is a symbol of the devil in the Christian world. That's very strange.
That is very strange, considering that fact. Yes, it is. The serpent was responsible for a fall, according to those legends. So wearing something that was serpentine, that is kind of strange.
Yeah, you know, I mean, when Cleopatra hit, my mother bought herself a cheapo snake bracelet, and she could never bring herself to wear it because she was superstitious about it. People who grew up Catholic or Greek Orthodox are very skittish about snake symbols.
Yeah, in ancient Greece, that wasn't so. Ancient Greeks didn't worship the snake exactly, but they held it in reverence. They believed that the snakes represented the souls of the dead sometimes, especially heroes. So people had these shrines where they fed the snakes, because the snakes might be the souls of heroes coming to them and whispering oracles.
Well, the
And
Minoan snake goddess, you know, she's
yes,
holding two snakes.
and some of the depictions of Hercules strangling the two snakes that are in his crib have been interpreted as the snakes whispering wisdom to Hercules. So it's not really strangling them; he's holding them up to his ears so he can hear what they're saying.
Well, you know, there's so much that we don't understand. And it's just, we really are just, I don't know, lobotomized when we come to planet Earth. So we can live our lives here and take them seriously and not think this is ridiculous. Why am I here? But yeah, I think we'll. I don't know, but one would hope that when we die, we know, at last, sweet mystery of life, I found you. You know, let's hope.
Yeah, I hope that that's true as well. And there really is a lot of information available to us here. The tricky part of it is that it contradicts. And some of it is it's our way or the highway or our way, and you get burned on a stake or impaled or have your head cut off if you don't think about things the way we think about them or see things the way we see them. So getting this knowledge is a dangerous thing, but we have so much information on communications from beyond, be they from other planes, from other dimensions. From the afterlife, from outer space. And a lot of it is remarkably consistent. So I don't think we're left totally by ourselves here. I think there's always guidance of some sort. And I used to be a channeler or a deep trance medium, and I've known many
Uh-huh.
channelers. And there too, there seems to be a broken record. That's not my analogy. John Keel, who gave us the Mothman prophecies, he said in one of his books called Disneyland of the Gods that there appears to be like a broken record that you could tap into with your mind during meditation. I found that to be true. There's like places where if you reach down deep enough into yourself, you'll find theosophy. And again, it differs in the details, but it's very remarkably consistent in terms of the information.
And what's interesting is that it's across time and across nations and across civilizations. It's not just one group. It's like a near-death experience for an Egyptian is like a near-death experience for us. That's very strange.
Yes, it is very strange. And a lot of the seeing your relatives or religious figures in the tunnel, that's also very remarkably consistent from place to place. And people have had NDEs since the dawn of time and have described them. Those two are remarkably consistent. It seems to be tied to what you happen to believe in. So, like for instance, if someone in our culture died and saw Thor with his hammer, they wouldn't know what to make of that or how to translate that. If they were Viking, they would. So it seems that you expect to see who or what you expect to see, and then it goes from there.
Yeah, but for example, Hercules is also, I don't know, some Superman. Okay, that could be
Mhm.
Hercules. It's the same entity, but in different sheaths, in different bodies, to make sense to the people of a particular time and place.
Yes, that's very true. And Hercules was known during the Hellenistic era, where the Greeks were all over the place and it was common culture established by Alexander and his armies. They started comparing those things. So Hercules was milk cart among the Phoenicians. He was Sandon in some parts of Ionia. In Egypt, he was Bes. He was sometimes Heru, sometimes he was Shu. In the Tuscany and Etruscan areas, he was Ecoli. So you had the gods with all these different names in all these different places. There's a book by Nonnus called the Dionysiaca, where they list all of Hercules's names in antiquity. And in some places he was Zeus, in some places he was Kronos, in some places he was Mars. So they showed you how many different names he had just in the Mediterranean alone, and there were tons of them. So the ancients were very open to the idea that the gods are culturally understood and they have different names in different places, but there's one force behind the cultural masks.
I agree. Well, that would sort of bleed into Jung's idea of the collective unconscious, wouldn't
Yes,
it?
yes, I believe so.
So yeah, I would not be tremendously afraid to meet a space. Well, okay. There's that man. What was his name? Something Thor. Nick Curto loves that man.
Oh,
Something
Val
Gorgeous Thor, or
Valthor plays a part of my story too, but yes, Valthor.
and on the internet there are supposedly photographs of him and this beautiful blonde woman who was with him, and she's also a space alien, and that they came here and they said, look, do away with the nuclear weapons, we'll give you the cure for cancer, we'll give you everything. And our arrogant, crazy planet said, no, that's ridiculous. Why didn't we say yes? That is ridiculous.
Yeah, my story ties in with that. As a child, I had memories of Valthor and his spaceship and his crew. So when I discovered it later on when I was older and I could read UFO books, that was something that existed outside my brain. That was very interesting to me. Not that I had a sustained memory or interaction with it after that point, but I remember being on a ship before I was born and picking out where I wanted to be born and all that. And it was with Valthor and Don and I forget what the woman was called, Jill or Jane or something. So there's like a pre-birth memory with a cast of characters that existed outside my brain. So that's how I tied into it.
Do you think you're a starseed child, and do you think that's why you have a psychic gift that manifested so early in life?
I've entertained that, and I tend to believe it more than I believe other theories. I believe that the human soul is consists of many streams, and some of the streams are from outer space, some of the streams are from other dimensions, some of the streams are from other elements in nature. Like you have people who remember being elves and dwarves and dragons and Venusians and Martians and all sorts of different things. And they identify with that very powerfully and see themselves as part of that. So I believe that these are different streams that lead into the schoolroom of humanity. So we're all here to learn something, and therefore our world has value. And part of my resonance with the Hercules mythos, as it exists throughout the Mediterranean and beyond it into other cultures, because in India he was the twin of Krishna. He was also the many-headed serpent throne that Vishnu sat on. He was Narasimha, the lion man. So again, it goes beyond the Mediterranean. But I believe that that's the archetype and that we're variations of a timeless tale. So we have different names and we're in situations which can be experienced on a variety of different levels, and that we learn or we don't what we're here to learn or not learn. And then that helps us evolve into maybe better stories. I don't know.
I agree. I think, well, yeah, this is kindergarten, I guess, for the soul. We're here to learn and progress if we're lucky, if we don't regress. I think people can also regress,
Yes.
and that's sad, So, I mean, okay, like that poor guy, Nick, the son of Rob Reiner, Nick Reiner, who was so in the grip of drugs, who looks demonic if you look at photographs of him. The look in his eyes is not unlike the look that Rasputin had in his eyes or Charles Manson had in his eyes. And, I guess evil entities possess people when they're under the influence if they do it a lot. And then, they turn into really bad souls and regress and do awful things.
Yeah, the alcohol, especially alcohol, was called spirits,
Yes, yes,
or it still might be called spirits. And if you're sensitive to other vibrations, if you go into places like bars, you can see that some spirits are inhabiting certain people who are drinking because they can't get the alcohol directly, but they can get like a contact buzz type of thing.
right, sure.
And I've been told that it's the same thing with people who are on drugs. People reported the same type of observations that they have spirits who are prompting them to use the drugs, and the spirits are getting a contact high from that person taking drugs.
Well, you always hear that, so and so's a great guy until he gets a few drinks in him. Then he's a completely different person. I
Yes,
think that's something to do with it.
I believe so as well.
So, I don't know. Here's the interesting thing. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Like
Correct.
when the Pope says, I say this, I want to say, buddy, you don't know. No one knows. We're all taking shots in the dark. No one knows. So really, no one knows anything. We just know that we live here, that
Uh-huh.
we are in a meat suit, that we have to eat and go to the bathroom and breathe and all that stuff. And that's all we know. We don't
Right.
really know anything else.
Right. That's why Socrates was considered to be the wisest man among the ancient Greek philosophers, because he knew that he knew nothing. But when all is said and done, what do
Right?
we know? Absolutely, absolutely nothing.
He knew a lot because I know, but he was the first person to popularize the idea of Atlantis. And centuries later, Edgar Casey corroborated
Yes.
the Atlantean experience.
Yeah, Plato wrote about those things in Timaeus and Critias, and Plato was a student of Socrates and quoted him often.
Yes, and past life regressions. People go back to lives in Atlantis and all sorts of things. And yeah, I mean, and for a long time, Atlantis was considered a myth. I know that's ridiculous. Don't be a continent thinking, oh, come on, grow up. But no, it did. And, off Bimini, where supposedly Atlantis was, there are these wonderful underground cities, underwater cities, that were once bustling avenues.
Yeah, they have roads. I've seen pictures of the Bimini roads, And one of my guides when I was doing the deep trance mediumship back in the 70s was an Atlantean. He was he looked like someone from like Hawaii,
Hmm.
or other areas of the Pacific, and he had this cloak of feathers. They were brightly colored feathers. I guess they were parrot feathers or something. And he had a staff and he wore a robe, and he had a very quirky sense of humor, I remember.
Well, probably people, for all we know, people in Hawaii are Atlanteans. I know that Edgar Casey said that some of the Atlanteans rescued themselves and wound up in the Basque area of Spain.
Yes, I heard that.
And yeah, and that's interesting because my grandfather was from the region right next door to that. And we all have this weird hybrid nose that begins on our forehead, sort of like a Greek statue. And that is weird, I mean, maybe that's an Atlantean feature. Who knows?
I have a project I'm working on that you expressed a little bit of interest in when we talked about it. I'll explain a little bit more, and hopefully you'll still be interested, and I'll invite you to join us. Um, I I'm very wary of like doing anything beyond like teaching classes, because it's very easy for people to find a reason to abdicate responsibility for their lives and then listen to what you're saying or to what a spirit is saying through you. So this is part of the reason why I stopped being a deep trance medium, because when I was deep trance medium, I was serving a group downtown in New York, and I was a teenager. So I was pretty good at what I did, and I had a lot of people coming to talk to the spirits through me. And then I started noticing that they wouldn't make decisions unless they talked to the spirits. So I thought that was wrong. I didn't think it was wrong to ask spirits for their opinion, but not to abdicate responsibility for making decisions for your own life. So I stopped doing that, and I've been consistent with that. I've taught a lot of things, some in libraries and some in colleges and schools. But just I'm sharing information, and I'm making it very clear that this is the best information I have to share. And something might happen today that might change my mind, and then I'll have different information to share. I'm not emotionally vested in my information. So these are structured like explorer groups. So it's like we're exploring astral projection, we're exploring dreams. I don't pretend to have any of the answers. I know very little. The only thing that makes me different is I've been playing with my brain since I was a child, recording dreams and meditating and doing.
Right.
So I can share what I've experienced, but I know that my interpretation may be wrong. And it's often happened that somebody will say something and all of a sudden I'll see something differently. And so I'll change my mind about it, or I'll share the new information I have, or I'll share the old information I had with the new information I had. So I decided to start with a language that everybody spoke of. And that's a problem with dealing with psychic information, because usually it's tied to occult groups or religious groups. So it's tied into their story about what's good and what's evil and why we're here and so on and so forth. And those are interesting things to um, explore, but they're terrible things to get stuck in. So I decided to
Well,
use the language of theosophy, because theosophy, the movement started here in New York, and then it became global and helped India with its independence and so forth. But they took all the old stuff from the ancient theosophy that happened during the Hellenistic era. They incorporated lands that were further afield in the Mediterranean. Uh,
and Tibet, she went all over the place looking
right,
for theories that were common ground for everyone.
right. And they believed in universal brotherhood and sisterhood of humanity, and all that type of stuff. And it provided us with a language which has been adopted by the New Age and by a lot of metaphysical groups.
Well,
And
karma, for example, yeah,
right.
the
So
word karma.
So we use theosophy as a lens and as a Rosetta Stone. It doesn't mean you have to believe everything theosophy says. It's just that this is how we can best communicate without getting into like a religious understanding of it. And then
I
go ahead.
yeah,
Then
what you were saying.
we explore whatever it is we're exploring. So right now, I made a group that's exploring the color of blue. So I did that deliberately because I didn't want to start with the Olympian pantheon or the Egyptian pantheon or the Atlantean pantheon or the Celtic pantheon or any other cultural pantheon. Let's start with
So,
the color blue and its uses in spirituality.
did you
And
say the color blue?
the color blue, and I called it
Well, here's a funny thing. I believe in the Odyssey, in ancient Greece and in the ancient world, they could not see blue,
that's
and
not
they
true.
call the Mediterranean the wine dark sea,
Yes, they
even
did,
though it's a
but
bright, amazing turquoise blue. So there you go.
they painted pictures of dolphins swimming and things like that, and the sea was blue, and the sky was blue too.
So eventually, they learned to see blue when they evolved.
I think that they could see blue, but they didn't describe things the way we're accustomed to describing things.
That's
I
interesting.
might be wrong.
That is.
Wasn't personally there, but I remember when I heard that, and other people who were into Greece and Egypt and other Mediterranean cultural lore, whether scientific or archaeological or occult, all dispute that, and they point to numerous examples. So I personally don't believe that's true.
Oh, so they could see blue. They just described it differently from the way we would.
Yeah, I'll give you an example with the color blue. There was something in antiquity called Tyrian purple,
Oh,
and
sure, from those little snails. Yes.
yes, and Hercules found that. Hercules had a dog, and he was with a nymph Tyro on a beach in Phoenicia, which is Canaan in the Bible. And his dog came back and looked like he had a bloody mouth. And he checked it, and Tyrell liked the color. It wasn't exactly red. It was red, and it was blue, and it was we call it purple today, or indigo, or violet, or whatever. And so he went looking for how his dog got this, and he found the Murex shell, and figured out how to make the dye. And the dye made Tyro, who's the nymph of the city of Tyre, rich. And the Tyrians had a very active trade. If you look at the colors that are described as Tyrian blue, some of them look like
Hmm.
red and some of them look like purple.
Well,
So,
I know that Nero was the only person allowed to wear purple in ancient Rome, and it was made from that dye.
yeah, and it was very
You
expensive.
know, yeah. You sort of wonder why they just didn't take indigo and cochineal, I think it's called. Those ground up bugs, and just make purple themselves. Big deal. But I guess they wanted the real deal.
Yeah, they wanted the real deal. So that blue, call that blue now, depending on what shade of purple you're looking at, because some of them are very close to blue and some of them are very close to red, but that was considered blue. And later
Well, I
on,
can tell you that on video, it's very difficult to film purple because it can look blue
right.
sometimes, or it can look burgundy if it's on the red scale, on the red side. So you really have to play with the lights to make sure that purple reads as purple.
And the primary colors, there are seven of them, not because there actually are seven primary colors, but because occult-wise, there was the number seven, which is associated with classical planets. So they made the color rainbow seven, but there's so many different lines on the color rainbow that you could have done it differently.
Well, and when people have near-death experiences, they describe colors that we don't have here, that
Right.
they cannot describe. So that's interesting. You find the color, is blue your favorite color?
Yeah, blue is my favorite color. Cobalt blue, or as I used to call it when I was a kid, midnight blue. It's not the color blue that comes at midnight. but the second before the sky becomes black, it's this weird shade of blue that's called cobalt blue, and that's my
Yeah,
favorite
sure.
blue. But I like blue's generally my favorite color. I like all shades of blue. I like other colors
You,
also.
you,
Blue is one of my favorites.
it's most people's favorite color, and we're called, it's a blue rock we live on, and yeah, and blue jeans. Come on, they're so popular, and blue jean jackets and blue jean everything.
Are they still
You
popular?
know, I mean,
I haven't been. I've been very isolated lately. Last time I remember them being popular was in the maybe the 80s or the 90s.
what, blue jeans?
Yeah, are they still popular?
Oh God, yes. You go everywhere. I mean, you can't miss them. They're everywhere. And in wild varieties like ultra skinny, bell bottoms, almost palazzo pants, just any, yeah. Denim it rules. It's really popular.
I remember bell bottoms. I like those days and those
I
pants.
loved bell bottoms. Are you kidding? And listen, I'm short, so I wore big platform shoes hidden under the bell bottoms. I don't know how I didn't trip on stairs and kill myself, but there you go. Because the heels used to catch in the cuffs of the big pants, and it was a mess. But yeah, oh, please listen. If you have a time machine, let's go back to the '70s. That works.
And bring back the bell bottoms.
Yeah, and remember how rude it was? There were like, I had these pants that had obvious buttons along the crotch. It was so rude, but everybody did it.
Yep, everybody did. I remember.
Yeah, but those were good days. And that's just when interest in metaphysics exploded. Things like Edgar Casey, like, Chariot of the Gods, that's from '73, I believe. So, I mean, the '70s were sort of the turning point. And everyone says the '60s, but in the '60s, a lot of people were still '50s. It took the '70s to make even like our parents' generation finally get with the program.
Yeah, now I wonder how we'll look back at these days we're living in. Not as nostalgically as we do the 70s, I'd imagine.
We will probably look at it the way before this we looked at McCarthyism.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And this will be the darkest, I hope, this will be the darkest chapter in our history. Let's hope nothing worse comes along. Well, before I got on the phone with you, I was perusing the internet, as I often do, on my phone, and there's this man who swears he's from 2050, and he shows the White House all destroyed, and the Pentagon destroyed, and roads with no cars, and abandoned cars, and I don't know how true that is. There are people who say that Valiant Thor is a myth, that it's not real. There are people who say that John Tiernan, whatever his name was, the time traveler from 2039,
John,
isn't really a time traveler.
John Titor, is that the guy?
Yeah, so yeah, that's it. Yeah, and that I don't know. There's this great book by Alfred. I think his name is Alfred, or maybe it's Albert or Alfred something Weber, a French name in the middle, and it's called The Multiverse, and it's great. And it details that the U.S. government has had time travel for almost a century, and that Obama really was on Mars as a teenager, and a lot of people were, and that Eisenhower's granddaughter said no, she didn't want to go. They offered her a place, and she said no, 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 thanks, no. And so you never know.
Nope, you never go. That you never know, and that's why I explore things rather than claim expertise in them.
Maybe that's part of the fun of being on planet Earth, that we don't know, and we get to go down different avenues and think, is this right? Is this right? Maybe that's part of the trip.
I think so. And there are synchronicities and deja vus and dreams and all sorts of other things to somehow let us know that we're on the way or we're off our path. And if we learn to heed those things too, you have more choices in each passing moment.
Well, I told you about a certain event that happened today, a synchronicity where uh, non-human entities channeled a date that is March 12th. And I was startled at the date because I thought, well, that's certainly, come to think of it, this has something to do with my grandmother because December 8th was her saint day. Her name was Concepcion. This is too weird. You know, like our friend who channels these things.
Yes.
This is really weird. This I guarantee to spark my interest. It's almost as though they're saying, here, look, we're showing you dates that mean something to you.
Yes, my mind would be going along the same lines if that happened to me.
Yeah, it's too weird. I love it. I love, listen, I feel sorry for people who have like no interest and no curiosity and just want to watch ball games and drink beer and, I mean, I used to live in New Jersey in Palisades Park. It's a town there, and not the amusement park. It's an actual town. And there was nothing to do. So I'd go to the VFW hall, and which was right next to where I lived. And these people were not curious about things. They just wanted to bet on the horse races on television and have a few drinks and BS all night long, and that was it. That was their lives.
Yep, and that is the life in very many places. People who work, they get up in the morning, they go to work, they come home from work, they watch TV or do things like that, or now play games on your computer, your video game system, or whatever you do at home, then go back to bed, and the same thing happens the next day, and it's a predictable cycle that they only escape through death.
I hope that's not a wasted life. I hope that for whatever, it's like the film It's a Wonderful Life. I hope that even though it seems to be sort of a meaningless life, it's not. And they have an impact somehow, some way that maybe we don't understand and they don't understand. But I hope people aren't just taking up space. Although I think now and then we get sort of resting lives that aren't too strenuous. But what I'm talking about is like a lot of these people had like hard jobs, like construction and everything. So this wasn't like an easy life, but they just wanted to zone out, veg out at night and just be.
No, that's a good point, and I believe the same thing as well. I also believe the time spent reading and playing video games and watching movies isn't time wasted either necessarily, because we experience things vicariously through those mediums. So it's not necessary to act the thing out in your daily life if you could experience it once removed. My,
Well, that's why movies became such a big success.
yes,
People who lived on farms, they had very dull lives. And now they go and see a movie and, oh my God, look at this. I mean, wow, white telephones. Wow, penthouses on Park Avenue. Wow, look at those tall buildings. This is like amazing if you've never actually seen it. And it expands your horizon.
yes, that's very true. Our mutual friend who's recently on your show talked about this briefly too, about the relationship between popular culture and an individual who's metaphysical in nature. And I found that to be true as well, that sometimes you don't need to read people's minds or guess what the masses of humanity are doing. Just look at what they're watching and respond to, and you have a pretty clear idea of where the mass mind of humanity happens to be in any particular point in time. What's popular,
Yeah,
how
but
many
there are always outliers like us who, although we like pop culture and are aware of it, we also like other stuff that most people think should land us in a mental hospital. So there you go.
and years ago it would have.
Absolutely. And not that many years ago. I mean, I remember when I was into Edgar Casey, like in the early 70s, people used to shake their heads like, oh, you crazy thing. What else are you into? Like just some crazy hippy dippy nonsense. And today there's much more respect for both the work of Edgar Casey and metaphysics in general. I had a weird experience. I was talking to a political friend of mine. He's
Mhm.
very bright. And I said, I'm really into metaphysics. Now, this woman has a poli-sci degree, and she's really smart. And she said, I don't know what that word means. I had to, well, like psychic phenomena. I was startled that someone didn't know what the word metaphysics meant. Someone as intelligent and learned as she was.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of people don't believe in it, or they don't think it's worth wasting time on, and so forth. And a lot of people now, they're more aware of it because of cable television, which has a lot of psychic themed and metaphysically themed shows, either through speculative fiction, through documentaries, through speculative nonfiction, supposedly, through science fiction, fantasy, or horror entertainment. So that information is more out there than it's ever been. It's harder to avoid it. But yeah, for most of my
Yeah,
life,
but I think that's part of our evolution,
I,
that pop culture is highlighting these things.
I believe it's part of our mythology, and it does translate into reality. Look at all the things that were fantasy on Star Trek that are now reality.
Exactly, yeah. And I love the racial balance on the Enterprise, with people of color and everything, and everybody's equal, and it's nice. And, and that was not the case in most of the United States in the 1960s. You had, the KKK, and I don't know what else. All
And
these, and the Proud Boys, and all these awful
we're seeing
people.
that shadow rear its ugly head again.
Yeah, that's because it's been made acceptable. So they all came out of the bigotry closet and they're waving their white sheets in our faces. Yes. Yes. But I do have hope for humankind. I really do.
So
I
do I.
think that we've survived other things, and I have a friend who says that we've never had it better, and I don't agree with that. But and not necessarily materially, but like it's supposedly illegal to torture people. I wonder because Dick Cheney certainly revived the fine art of torture under the W administration and other things. But I think we're all everything. We all have everything in us in different proportions. Some people lean more toward the side of good and social justice, and some people don't. But we all have the same traits in different proportions. What do you think?
I think that makes a lot of sense, and it bears thinking about in people's meditation sessions, whatever type of meditation they do. That, yeah, we recognize and react to things inside ourselves. So when we see them in the external world, and a lot of times, if you look at what people are saying on the soapbox, and you ask them honestly, who are they talking to? They're not talking to the world at large. They're talking to events and circumstances that are very personal and very close to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're almost out of time. How much time do we have?
We have around 12 minutes by my account.
Oh, good. Well, good. So, yeah, I just, I think it's really interesting that the world is growing much more spiritual. Like years ago, when you mentioned near-death experiences, people would roll their eyes, and now they don't. And, all sorts of things. And most people today in the U.S. believe in space aliens. And before they would laugh and, oh, you mean little green man? Ha, ha, ha. Ha. And so I think we're on a good road. I think this might be the last gasp of the old world, the world of, ring-a-ding, rat pack, men as predators, women as, conveniences and other Frank Sinatra-ish things, you know what I mean? But I think we're going in the right direction. What do you think?
I think that collectively we can create any type of world we want. The world certainly has the natural resources to feed everybody and to give everybody a good life. We have enough information floating around that people can learn about and become proficient in anything they want to become proficient in or learn about. And there are plenty of opportunities to apply this knowledge to create a better world. But we have to want that collectively, and we have to work toward it collectively. And in the interim, we can just
Well,
create the best world we can with our private lives and the people that we know in our private lives. So make your friends and loved ones life as easy as you can make it. Provide them with as much opportunity as you can provide. Empower and encourage them to embrace their dreams. So we all have a circle of influence, even if it's only a household big. And we don't really exercise the power we do have. But I believe that when we learn to do that and we focus on creating a paradise for all, that we'll be able to do that.
I think unchecked capitalism has deliberately dumbed down the world and made people think that all there is going to work, coming home, going to work, coming home, going to work, coming home, and maybe not even having a home. A lot of people work full time, live in shelters or in their cars if they're lucky enough to have a car. And I really think that we need checks and balances on capitalism. I'm all for capitalism. I think it's the best system, but it cannot be unchecked, rapacious capitalism that leaves 98% of the world in the dust. What do you think?
I believe that too. I believe that there should be caps on it because no person can spend billions of dollars during the course of a lifetime. So I believe there should be a cap. There should be equal taxation, and that people who don't have the money should not be taxed more than people who do. But again, that is to be.
Well, I think also a lot of the one percenters are frantically trying to find a way to be immortal. They don't want to go because they like having all the money in the world and everybody else scratching along. So they want to stay here, and they have a gazillion longevity things, and they have their bunkers in Iceland or somewhere, wherever they do. And I mean, this is just ridiculous,
That it is, and I still believe though that we can make it a better world, even if we just focus on the people in our lives that have meaning to us and that we care about.
I think the division in our society is because some people are sticking with the old world, unchecked capitalism, bigotry, sexism, homophobia, all the phobias that pertain to the old world. And some of us have moved beyond that. But of course, because the old world has weapons and money and all that, they're the ones who right now are shooting mothers of three in their cars and blinding 21-year-old men. But I hope this is the last gasp of the old world. What do you think?
I hope so as well. And as we've talked about all these times before, some of the understandings that have come from those things, no matter how crazy society thought they were at the time, are now part of our reality. And you mentioned UFOs and people laughing at it. And now everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people believe it. A lot of understandings that were controversial in our youth are still in our lifetime now considered to be everyday normal and understandable. So I think that communication and keeping these topics out there and in people's minds as they click onto podcasts or videos on Facebook or on YouTube or on other places spreads that information, spreads the insights, and that they might change the collective mind of humanity.
I think Gene Roddenberry, as I said on television the other day, and maybe Steven Spielberg have secret information from the government that spurred them to create amazing space realities that are real, but that we don't really know about just yet. What do you think?
That makes a lot of sense. So there's evidence for some of it that they had contact with the government on some level or another, or with cosmic spirituality groups of one sort or another. So they had the information and they made it more entertaining, more enjoyable, more marketable, and they got it out there, and that became part of our reality.
Well, again, as we said on television last week, Star Trek is a kind of secular contemporary religion these days.
Yes. So Star Wars, and so are several other ones.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. Yeah. I know people who are crazy about Star Wars. Yeah.
So
absolutely. They love it. That's their religion. Yeah.
with Star Trek,
So, yeah.
live the reality. They assume the role of Starfleet officers or Klingons or Bajorans or whatever. They get together and their clubs are structured like a spaceship, like the Enterprise, and so forth. And then they support the charities and keep the shows alive through the conventions that they go to and the TV they watch and the things
I think that I know a lot of people who go to those conventions, and
yeah,
they love those conventions.
yeah, I remember. It's really intense. And yeah, it is a religion. The word fan comes from the word fanatic, which wasn't as negative a word in antiquity as it is now. It just meant someone who was really devoted to something spiritual. It's fanaticus.
Well, I think Star Trek is very spiritual in its own way.
Yes, inspired
Because
spiritual things.
yeah. So anyway, so how are we doing on time?
We have a couple of minutes left, and I enjoyed conversing with you. We haven't really had a chance to do that in a long time, so I'm grateful to you and to the universe for providing us the opportunity to catch up and to share thoughts.
Hey, we have to thank the Comte Saint Germain for that one. Yes.
Well, thanks, Saint.
But anyway.
And I'll send you more information on my own version of Theosophia.
Yes. And we well, how can people contact you if they want to contact you?
The best way would be through YouTube. On YouTube, look under Hercules Invictus. You can Google me, Hercules Invictus, and that'll give you links to a lot of different things I've done. I'm most active social media-wise on Facebook, and that's a good way to reach me as well. So there you go.
Okay. And you can reach me courtesy of Hercules, should you wish to reach me. But there you go. So anyway, my guest has been Hercules Invictus, and I've been his guest now, and I guess you could say we were each other's guests tonight.
There you go.
And we're heard every third Saturday of the month from 9 to 10 New York time. And listen in and enjoy and, and tell us what you think. And I guess we'll see you next, or hear you next time, right?
Right. Thanks to everybody. Happy New Year, joyous journeys, and amazing adventures. And thanks again, Diana and Count Saint Germain.
Thanks. Okay, bye.
Bye.